Okay, everyone, let's get started. Okay, everyone, so welcome to our third bonus lecture. I'm so glad so many of you can join us today for an extra evening of lectures because we had our lecture last night on paediatrics. So this evening's lecture is going to be on dentistry. So there's been quite a few of you asking for more dentistry content. So this is what we have for you tonight. I'm going to post in the chat the register. Let me just go to it now. So if you just scan the QR code with your phone or follow the link that I'm just about to publish. Right, so complete that. Don't leave the talk, obviously. Open it in a new browser tab and let me know that you're here this evening for the lecture. This won't count towards your overall attendance. However, obviously, as we've discussed throughout the lecture program, exposing yourself to more perspectives, more points of view will add so much value to you when it comes to writing your personal statement and your interview. So thanks for being here. Now, the prize winners from last night were Faith and Betty. So well done to those two for completing our post-event survey, letting us know how they found the lecture last night and giving us some feedback. If you complete the post-event survey this evening, you'll be in for the chance to win a voucher as well. So make sure you look out for that at the end of the talk. Now, I always like to comment on some of the feedback we get. And I've already looked through last night's feedback and we had some brilliant comments again. And I'm seeing really great reflection from all of you each and every week. And I really love this comment from this student who emphasized curiosity, creativity, collaboration, which was a key point of Rohana's talk. And the reason why I underlined this is because if someone asked you, why are you thinking about medicine in the future? This would be a really excellent thing to talk about. You could say, I heard from a consultant paediatrician from the Evelina Hospital, and they talked about the creativity there is in medicine and the collaboration with a team. And this is something that really appeals to me, and then go on from there. So I think that's really good that that student highlighted those three things. I really like this comment as well about how doctors are learning constantly. So lifelong learning is a key theme that we often talk about during interview and is something students will often highlight in their personal statement. But I really like this comment, how this student talked about lifelong learning in a social sense as opposed to an academic sense, purely academic. They also talked about learning constantly, how to interact and communicate with people. I thought that was a really lovely comment to make. So this was an excellent piece of feedback as well from this student here. So just keep doing that, guys. It's really great to see. So tonight's lecture is from final year dental students Faris and Robbie from they have a podcast called You Know the Drill. They delivered a session last year and I wanted to get them back this year because I really enjoyed it and I think you guys will as well. But we have lots of bonus content this month, including 3 additional sessions on the UCAT. So tonight's event, my intro will end in a moment. Then I'll hand over to Faris and Robbie, who will have, say, 40 minutes for their talk, and then we'll do a Q&A before we close. Now, you guys all know how to use the Q&A by now, but make sure you're using the Q&A, interacting with the lecture, and we'll be getting back to as many queries as we can throughout as well. But if you don't want to see the Q&A because you find it distracting, you can press this button here and you can hide it, because I know some of you find it a little distracting to see the comments come up as you're watching the talk. So feel free to do that if you wish. And your team this evening, you have myself, as well as our speakers, Faris and Robbie, and we also have 3 ambassadors. And I don't usually do this, but I'd like you to meet some of our ambassadors this evening because we won't be doing the normal Q&A. So I'm going to hand over to each ambassador just to say their first name, what year they're in, and something they like about King's, and maybe if they've been on a WP program as well. So I'm going to go to Fizza first. So Fizza, if you could just introduce yourself and yeah. Cool. What year you're in, etc.
Hi guys, my name is Fizza. I'm a 4th year dentistry student. I'm on the ESDP program, and I actually did K+ as well as like a widening participation program. And one of my favorite things about King's Dentistry would be the early clinical exposure. So it's like 2nd year, we were doing like so many things with patients.
Great. Thanks for that. I think it's a really great comment to make, and that is true at King's. Students get to work with patients very quickly. I'll come to Nikita next.
Hi everyone, my name is Nikita and I'm a first year dental student at King's, and I'm also on the ESDP program. And I'm a former medicine and dentistry lecture series student as well. And I'd say my favorite thing about King's is how welcoming it is, and how much I've enjoyed so much in my first year, and it's a whole like new environment and new community formed.
Great, cool. Thanks, Nikita. It's great to see lecture series students now here at King's. And finally, on to Salma.
Hi everyone, I'm Salma. I'm a first year dental student and I was also on the K+ program. Something that I really enjoyed about my experience at King's so far is definitely the people here. I think everyone's so approachable, and also there's lots of societies that you can join and get involved in as well.
Great, thanks so much, Salma. So nice to see, we've got two former K classes and a lecture series student here with us this evening in the chat. So guys, post your questions and you have our three ambassadors and myself there to answer them. And without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Faris and Robbie for their talk this evening. So Robbie, if you want to share your slides, and I will let you know when they're visible.
Sure thing.
Great.
There we are.
Cool. Great. Let me put you on screen as well. So yeah, Robbie, you're there now with your slides. Thanks so much to both you and Faris for being with us this evening. Over to you.
Yeah, just super duper quick, just before we head right in, Jake, we can't see the number of attendees on our screen, so we just can say hi to everyone. Do you know how we can see the people that have joined?
You won't be able to see individual names, but in the chat you have live Q&A. There's around 60 people with us at the moment.
Okay, awesome. Well, hello everyone. Sorry, it's a bit invisible on our screen, so I was trying to check who we've got here. But yeah, hi guys. As Jake said, firstly, just to begin, we just want to say a massive thank you to Jake for setting this all up. It's very hard to get a hold of me and Robbie. We were stressing about our finals exams the last few weeks, so we're finally here, and thankfully we made it, so you can semi-officially call us Dr. Faris and Dr. Robbie. Yeah, so kind of the aim of today is to give you guys a little taster of what dentistry is really like, give you some insights not just into the career, but what the course is all about, our experiences, myself and Robbie, and also, talk about anything that you guys feel isn't talked about enough. We know that there's a lot of things that you might look up online, you might be a bit confused, a bit scared, don't really know what is the truth and what's fake. So that's why we're here. We're in our final year, we're about to escape, so we're going to give you the realest advice. But yeah, so I'll start off by giving a little bit about myself. So hi, as I said, my name is Faris. I'm a final year student at King's, soon to be dentist. Egyptian, Liverpool supporter. We won't talk about this season too much. It was a little bit more fitting last year, but we'll survive. And
of Faris Dent, which is kind of my platform where I do some talks about dentistry, and founder and CEO of Oralize, which is an AI-based interview and personal statement helper that I'll give you guys a little chat about later today. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Perfect. And yeah, as Faris said, thank you to everyone for joining. My name's Robbie. I'm the other half of the Know the Drill podcast. Also a final year dental student about to graduate from KCL. Also Egyptian, but I've got some Sudanese in me as well. I'm an Arsenal supporter, so we're still top now, so we can cheer about that for a little while longer until Man City overtake us today. And yeah, as I mentioned, co-host and co-founder of the Know the Drill podcast. I'm also a trustee at Mobile Smiles, which is a overseas charity based in the UK, which kind of aims to help deliver dental aid and dental care to those who need it the most in poor countries and poor areas of overseas countries. So yeah, as Faris mentioned, the aims of this webinar essentially to gain an insight into the application process to try and get into dental school, hopefully, and understand some of the advantages and challenges of studying and practicing dentistry. So we're going to give you a little bit of an insight from our experiences of shadowing dentists and what we've learned at dental school, and also how to maximize your experience at dental school. How to make the most of your summer now. These are very crucial summers for you guys, which will give you the opportunity to strengthen your applications and your chances of getting into dental school. So we'll give you some tips with regards to that. And then hopefully we'll round off with the Q&A, as Jake mentioned earlier. So let's get right into it.
Yes, and first of all, we love to start off with a poll. We want to make sure that this talk is as relevant to you guys as possible. So in the chat, if you can just put your year, if you're year 11, year 12, year 13, if you know whatever you guys are in, so that we can make sure that we tailor this this talk as best as possible. So you just drop that in the chat. While you guys are putting that in, you know, as myself and Robbie were saying, this summer is a really important one for a lot of you. So we're really going to try our absolute best to give you guys some hints and tips. One big thing that we're kind of going to be focusing on today as well is kind of the interview process. So what you should be expecting, what things might catch you out. So if you guys have any questions, just give me give us a message on the chat here, and we'll get right to it. All right, awesome. Awesome. Year 12. Oh, I can see. Yeah, live event Q&A. Year 12. Year 12. Year 12. Year 12. Year 12. Come on, I want to see another one apart from year 12. Come on, guys. Year 12. All right, we can make a brave assumption that most people here are year 12. Awesome. So yeah, we're gonna get right to that and make sure that this is as relevant as possible as we can. So yeah, let's go into it. Robbie, let's get into that first slide.
All right.
So yeah. I'll start off with just a little fun bit. Why dentistry? It's one of those questions, you know. I always have this interesting talk with my parents where they're like, you know, why have you decided to look at teeth for the next 40 years of your life, destroy your back, and you know, just smell bad breath. But there is a lot that is good in dentistry, and there's probably the reason why you guys, or some of you, might be interested in pursuing it as a career. So generally speaking, the things that myself and Robbie, you know, really resonate with is the fact that you have great job stability. You know, I think the employment rate at our university is significantly above the 90%, and usually those that are in the bottom percentile are probably just leaving the UK and trying to find better and sunnier shores in Australia, like Robbie might be considering. Fantastic income. So, you know, I think this is something that's really shied away from. People don't like talking about money, but you can really easily work out how much a dentist makes. If you just go onto the NHS website, you can see how much the average dentist makes. But, you know, you will be living, you know, a fantastic life. You have a really good income. You're going to be able to work most of the time 4 days a week and be quite comfortably on a, you know, within the range of £80,000 plus. So just because a lot of people, they kind of shy away from how much dentists make, that should be a pretty reasonable figure for you to go for. And if you're a person that's a little bit more hardworking, get into practice ownership, 6-figure income is not something uncommon at all in dentistry. So just so you guys can get a bit excited about that, but that shouldn't be your one thing, because there are a few negatives, which I'm sure Robbie's going to go into just about now.
Yeah, so they're not so good. It's a shorter list, as you guys I'm sure have noticed. So it's obviously a longer degree compared to your peers. That means coming out of school, you might see some of your mates graduating within 3 years, starting families, things like that. It's not to say you can't, you know, start your family and start your life whilst still at dental school, but just realize you're going to graduate a couple of years later than your peers. Dentistry is also associated with high litigation. So basically means that people are quite, you know, more likely to sue you as a dentist. So compared to other jobs, you have that risk, and you do need to pay insurance to be registered as a dentist, and to be able to work here in the UK, you do need to have indemnity, which is an insurance company. Also, you have to understand with any healthcare professional, you're going to experience challenging scenarios, things that might be upsetting, things that might be extremely difficult for you to manage. You've got to be a leader and work well within the team. There's a lot of unpredictability within you know, day-to-day work as well. So that's got to be something you need to factor in. Physical health, Faris also alluded to poor back health. So dentists typically complain of bad backs, but again, with the right physio, with the right exercises, these are things that can be overcome. And finally, stress. A lot of dentists, a lot of studies have been published on dentists in the UK experiencing stress, burnout, mental health issues. So please do try and just Google mental health issues in dentistry, and you'll see a lot of literature with regards to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the reason why we say the negative, guys, isn't to try and scare you, but it's just to give you a realization that there's pros and cons to any career out there, and you need to be really hyper aware of the cons, because those are the things that are really going to get you down when things get tough. And just, you know, not scared, but just have to take it as reality. As a dentist, you will get sued at one point. Like, it's not a maybe, it is a certainty. It will happen at some point. But that's why, you know, when you go to university, especially for some of you that might be in year 13, you might sleep through your professionalism lectures and be like, I don't really care about this. But trust me, when the going gets tough, you're going to want to know, you know, how to be safe. But as I said, most people, they're very safe. You'll be fine as a dentist. Just make sure that you follow the GDC, who are the golden leaders. But yeah, so as we said, we're going to give you guys a whiz through the application process. Again, we have a Q&A at the end, and trust me, if you have any in-depth questions, myself and Robbie are very well equipped to deal with them, but we just want to give you an overview. So we're going to talk about work experience, the admissions tests, personal statement, submission of UCAS. What does it actually look like? Because it's a little bit of a, no one really knows what it looks like until you do it. Interviews, and then what to do with your A-levels. So yeah, let's go, Robbie. So yeah, I think I'll talk about work experience. So a lot of you kind of have kind of felt the remnants of COVID. I think you guys were one of the years that it might have just been after your GCSEs around that point. And you might have heard this rumor that, hey, work experience is impossible to get nowadays. And in reality, it is very difficult. Unfortunately, especially after COVID, getting work experience is a tough challenge. And now some of you might be thinking, what is work experience? Simply put, it just means you as a student, you make the effort to go and watch a dentist in a dental practice, in a dental hospital, or in any dental setting. The reason why we like to recommend this is because it's the only way for you to get realistic income insights into what the dentist looks like, and you're not focusing on income, which is like that big thing that a lot of people look at. So it's really, really important. Some would say very, very important for you to get work experience just before you go to university, because it gives you an insight into the career, the pros and cons, and it allows you to talk to a real life dentist. You can pick their brains, understand what they're going through, what it's really like to be a dentist, because myself and Robbie can harp on about it all day, but until you see it in person, you're not going to know. And the second point of reference as to why work experience is so good is because it gives you something really good to talk about in your interviews. When you start thinking about your interviews and your personal statement, it's all based on the experiences that you have collectively, whether that's you've done DOV, NCS, you're captain of the football team, you're fantastic in dance society. More experiences equals greater possibility for you to have skills that are relevant to the course. So that's why work experience is so good. We know that it's hard, so if you cannot get in person, the alternatives are doing things like online or virtual work experiences. If you literally Google it online, you'll find a bunch out there, and also doing something called a MOOC, which is a massive online open course. University of Sheffield has a really good one. I think it's called Discover Dentistry. It allows you to kind of get a bit of insight into the career. But in short, work experience is hard, but my biggest tip is be tenacious. You're going to get 98% of the people that you apply to say no. And I'm not saying that as an exaggerating stat. It's probably going to be about 98%. You're reliant. You just need one person to say yes for you to get that work experience. So don't get disheartened. As a point of reference, I know people that sent about 500 emails before they got one answer. This is the rest of your life. Try and make the effort to, even though it's hard, this is like the first steps. You got to go through the grind. And also, if the banker mum and dad or an uncle or auntie that has a dental practice or does any kind of dentistry, they're a great place to start as well. So yeah, just wanted to touch on work experience. In my opinion, it's a really important thing.
Perfect. Thank you, Faris. So moving on, you have some admissions tests that you would typically sit in between year 12 and year 13, or perhaps early year 13. So let's get started with the UCAT. This stands for the University Clinical Aptitude Test, and it's essentially a 2-hour test taken between the end of July and end of September. You can do it either in early or late sitting. The price is the same, it's £70. There's 5 sections: verbal reasoning, decision making, quantitative reasoning, abstract reasoning, and situational judgment. Now, I saw in the list earlier when Jake was presenting that you guys have some upcoming lectures about sections of the UCAT, so I won't go into too much detail, but just know that it's the main admissions test used by most of the dental schools, or pretty much all of them except Leeds at the moment. And each section is graded between 300 to 900, except the SJT, which is band 1 to 4. And essentially you're ranked against the rest of the cohort that take that test. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of some of the scores from previous years. So essentially, these are the deciles. So your total scores for each of the 4 sections, remember we said it's between 300 to 900, are added up. And if you're in the first decile, basically means you are in the bottom 10%. If you're in the 9th decile, it means you're in the top 10%. And these are the scores for the previous years. You can find this all online if you go to the UCAT website. And in the situational judgment test, it shows you the number of candidates getting band 1, which is the highest band, and the number of candidates getting band 2, 3, and finally band 4, which is the lowest band. And you can see the number of people that sit the test each year. It's also used for medics as well, just in case you're interested. But yeah, that's a short summary of the UCAT. There are lots of courses you can use to prepare for it. There's also some books you can buy online to practice questions for it. it's not a memory-based test. It's just the more you practice, the better you're going to get, in my opinion, personally. So here are some tips. They're all on our Instagram page, so at You Know The Drill podcast on Instagram. Just very quickly, we've got some tips for verbal reasoning. So always read the question before the passage, identify extreme language, and practice time management. Again, I'm not going to go into too much detail because it is on our Instagram and you have got upcoming lectures on it. Feel free to take pictures. SJT, use your instinct, practice as much as you can, and remember key traits.
Yeah, and exactly as Robbie said, you can find us on our Insta, which also please feel free, guys, to drop us a message on there if after this talk you feel like you've still got a few questions. We're very happy to help, and exams are over, so we'll have time. But yeah, one thing I'll just say, I'm not going to go through all these. We'll try our best as well to get some form of these slides out to you guys so that you can read them. But you know, if you want to just be really quick, take some pictures as well, in case that doesn't manage to happen. But yeah, generally speaking, just be aware that with the UCAT, it's a really intelligent exam in the sense of you can't answer it in the same way you do a normal exam. So it's not like, you know, you have 2 hours to do this biology exam, spend the whole 2 hours, you know, equally based on the weighting of the question. The way they do the UCAT is they might give you a question that's worth like 20 marks, but you have 1 minute to answer it. So your decision making, your critical thinking gets played into. And the reason for that is because it's allowing you to train yourself as a dentist, as a medic, as a veterinary, as veterinarian, because they're the 3, you know, professions that usually use it, to identify what things you're going to answer in the right amount of time. So I just wanted to say that, just if one thing is going to stick with you guys, just remember with the UCAT, sometimes you have to take educated guesses. If you don't do that, then you will fail, unfortunately, because not answering question means you have 0 marks. Trying to answer gives you the potential of 1. So, you know, that's the best way to think about it. Cool.
Very good point.
I'll go on to this next slide.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, this one really quick. BMAP, it's one that's not really used that commonly in dentistry at the moment. It's only one university that uses it, which is Leeds. So again, we won't talk about this too much, but if you are thinking of applying to Leeds, definitely look into the BMAP. It's a slightly different exam, needs a bit more preparation, has a bit more sciencey based stuff. It has an essay component. The UCAT is more of like a sit down, like tick box kind of thing. You're not going to really do much typing. So if you want to do the BMAP, I'd really recommend you have a bit of a look at them right now. If you're in year what year is it? If you're year 12, have a quick look online. Don't start preparing, but just get a bit of insight into who uses it. That's all I'd say.
Definitely, and just be aware that any of you that might be in year 11, from 2024, the BMAT is going to be withdrawn, and universities will be looking at other entry examinations to use for admissions. All right, next slide. There we go.
Yeah, so this is the UCAS application. So this was the bit I was talking about, which is a little bit ambiguous. The way UCAS, what basically UCAS is, it's an organization that helps deal with all admissions that go into university. So whether you're doing postgraduate, which means after you complete a degree, whether you're doing undergraduate, which is what you guys are going to be applying for mostly, which means that you're starting your first degree, like myself and Robbie, we're finishing our undergraduate. This is where you do it. Within your application, what you need to be able to provide is stuff like evidence of your grades, so your GCSE grades. So if anyone, you know, lied their way through sixth form saying they got like 25 A stars, you're gonna have to prove it now. You've got a personal statement, which is a 4,000 character, basically mini essay that talks about your experiences and talks about your suitability to the course you're going to. And finally, it's really important to know that there's a deadline. So with Oxford, so Oxford, Cambridge, and dentistry, medicine, and veterinary sciences, alongside a few other degrees, you have to apply by around mid-October. This means that you have less time than your friends that might be applying to different courses like economics or business management or modern foreign languages. So you need to be aware that you have an earlier point. So don't get sucked into that feeling like, oh, my friends haven't done it yet. No, you need to do it a little bit earlier, unfortunately. And yeah, so that's kind of the main things that you're going to be doing on there. And in terms of just selecting the unis, typically the offers range between A star AA to AAA, and this is A levels, with subjects usually including biology or chemistry. Now, a lot of universities are taking a more liberal approach, a lot more relaxed with this science aspect, and some don't even ask for chemistry anymore. Back in the olden days, myself and Robbie, golden oldies, if you didn't do chemistry, you weren't going to do dentistry. So be aware that things are changing now. So don't stress out if you didn't do triple science at GCSE and you're not doing all the sciences at A level. But please do make sure you look at the uni websites to get more insight. Currently, there's 14 dental schools in the UK that offer undergraduate dentistry. I know that there's new schools opening up. I think that there's one private dental school opening soon, but you know, it's not going to be suitable for this year. I think it will be for the current year 12, maybe the year after. And yeah, it's kind of it's a hit and miss, because a lot of people always ask myself and Robbie, you know, what uni do I pick? People say, look at the teaching, look at this, you know, the main thing I always say, and this is my philosophy, and I'm sure Robbie will say his bit as well, is go to the university that you can see yourself being at for 5 years, in a sense of don't stress out too much about, you know, oh, the teaching style. I want you to think more about, hey, can I see myself in this city? Is it a fun place to be? Am I going to have really good experiences? Most of your uni experience isn't going to be sitting in a lecture hall. It's going to be out socializing, talking to people, new experiences, building up your skill set, basically. So that's kind of my advice for picking a uni.
Perfect. So I'll just talk a little bit about this. Thank you for that, Faris. There's this resource online. It was made by the Dental School Council, and essentially it's compiled all of the universities that offer dentistry in the UK into one booklet, and it's stated their entry requirements. Now, I'm not saying to take this booklet as, you know, gold standard. Please do check out the websites of each university for any changes. There is only 14. And as Faris said, it's very easy to just go through all of the 14 and think about which university can I see myself at for 5 years, think about renting costs, distance from your house, travel costs, things like that. It is a really, really small number of universities, so I would encourage you all to think about those aspects. And you can scan this QR code to download that PDF. So just as a quick summary, this is all from the PDF. As well as the 14 dental schools that offer dentistry at undergraduate level, you've also got dentistry with an extra year at the beginning. So these are 6-year courses, and essentially it's designed for those who achieved highly at A level, but who did not take the required science subjects. And this is offered at Manchester and Leeds, and the offers range from 3 A's to ABB, okay? You can read about all of this on the booklet. Then you've got dentistry with a gateway year. So these are designed for students who are of high ability, but who may have had barriers to their learning due to their socioeconomic and or educational circumstances. Again, often 6-year courses, so Bristol, Leeds. However, King's is 5 years. And the grades do vary quite a bit. As you can see, Bristol is BBC, Leeds is CDD, and KCL is the AAA. Liverpool have a foundation to health and veterinary studies, which is only open to mature students from the UK who have been out of education for some time. And I believe finally we've got the enhanced support course. So this is 5 years. It's offered by King's, and you need 2 A's and a B. Again, there's some requirements. You need to have an A in biology or chemistry, in addition to a B in one of biology, chemistry, physics, maths, or psychology, and you can only attend a non-selective state education within Greater London, okay? So please read more about it in the booklet. Finally, graduate entry dentistry, Aberdeen, UCLan, Leeds, and Newcastle, as well as King's, all offer you the opportunity to study dentistry if you've done a previous degree. KCL offers a 4-year, and they're all typically 4-year courses. KCL offers a 4-year course if you've got a previous degree in biosciences. They also offer a 3-year course if you have done medicine previously and completed your 2 foundation years, and you would like to go down the oral maxillofacial specialty, which essentially is a specialty that requires you to have studied both dentistry and medicine. So yeah, again, all of this information is in the booklet. Please do take your time to read that. And without further ado, we'll just move on to the personal statement.
Yeah, so the personal statement is a big one. This is kind of the little piece of paper that you submit that shows your insights into the career and that you actually made the effort to learn about it. So very simply, it's a 4,000 character document, including spaces in your lines and everything. And it allows you to differentiate between all the other people that are applying alongside you. So the whole point of it is to represent the skills that you have. We'll move on to the next slide to kind of talk a little bit more detail about how you can structure it. So yeah, so generally speaking, the way you should be thinking, firstly, we did a whole webinar just on personal statements. So it's this link here. As I said, we'll get these slides sent out to you guys, hopefully, so you can click through at any point. But generally, it's kind of 4 main bits: the introduction in your personal statement, which is basically talking about an interesting experience or something that called you, a call to action to dentistry. The meat and bones. Now, this is really important because you need to develop the skill of reflection, which means you reflect on these experiences. You talk about why you're unique. You talk about why you are suitable for the course. Extracurriculars. Now, you've probably heard this, that you should have been playing the violin since the age of 2, and you should have already learned basic algebra by the time you came out of the womb. It's not that important, don't worry. But extracurriculars allow you just to show that you've made a bit of an extra effort to learn about your degree and an extra effort to build your skill set. So, you know, and it doesn't necessarily mean you need to be a captain of a team. You can be even I even said to people, like, if you like if you game and like you're part of a Discord and you're really active and you can show different skill sets by doing that. You know, if you're good at Overwatch, if you're good at like COD, whatever game you play. So I just thought I'd make that really clear. Like, don't think in a traditional way. Try and be unique with your extracurriculars. Talk about things you're doing in your own life that can reflect on dentistry. And finally, a conclusion. The definition of a conclusion is to finish, and it means that you do not mention anything new. You have to just summarize and have a little finishing point from what you've said. So, you know, it's really easy. People really fret over the conclusion. It's just like a sentence or two. Next on the list is interviews. So interviews are super duper important. These are kind of the bit where people usually have the grades. They usually have a decent personal statement. The bit where they falter is interviews. The best point of reference here is just understanding what they are and how they're structured. So firstly, you've got MMIs, which are multiple mini interviews. This is kind of where you have different stations whereby you have insights into, you know, you might have a station where they ask you about, hey, show us how you tie a pair of shoelaces. Explain it to someone that's never tied shoelaces before. You might have another station where they say, hey, why do you want to do dentistry? What was your inspiration? And they're all individual small mini interviews that you do with different interviewers and are judged independently. And the second style is the traditional interview where you might have, you know, someone like myself or Robbie just staring at you, you know, nodding and listening. And that's where you kind of get asked direct questions. It's usually 20 minutes and you have 1 or 2 or 3 interviewers that are with you the whole time. So they're kind of the two styles. Myself and Robbie, you know, we like both styles. I like MMI because if you mess up one station, you can quantify how important it is. Like if you have 7 stations and only one of them went badly, that means what, like, I think only 14% of your interview's been messed up. So it's different than a panel, which is kind of more holistic. So I just thought I'd mention that. And lastly, when do you get them? Usually between November to March. Over the last few years, because of COVID, I've even had people getting them as late as April. So if you are next year applying and you don't hear back during, you know, around February period, don't get scared. Don't worry. Just be patient. If you don't get a rejection, I always say there's still hope.
Yes, I agree. I've seen it as well. A lot of people are getting interviews much later nowadays. So common question types, Faris has already been through some of the things, but this is a slide which we'll send to you later of typical questions that some of our colleagues might have had, or et cetera, et cetera. And MMI, Faris has already gone over, just emphasis really on the fact that it can be 5 stations or 20 stations. There can be rest stations in between, and the stations can last a few minutes. It really does vary, but it's good because if you mess up on one station, you can make it up on another station. Panel interviews, again, it's self-explanatory. You sitting against the panel. It could be, you know, students, postgraduate students, undergraduate students, professors, teachers, dean of admissions, literally anyone within the institute can be on that panel. And the universities I know that currently use that, Glasgow, Queen Mary, Sheffield, and Newcastle, in case you are interested. It's all in that booklet. Interview tips again on our Instagram, so please do check that out. Take a picture if you'd like, and these slides will be sent to you as well, as we previously mentioned. So the main thing is, as Faris said, don't panic. Just take time to really focus on revising. Don't even think about interviews after you've done them. No news is good news. Just patiently wait and don't sweat too much about it. You know, your grades is an important thing and you've got to really focus on the revision. There's no point you worrying about getting a reply and then the reply comes later and then you've missed a couple of months out from revision because you were worrying too much. No, honestly, do the interview to the best of your ability and just wait it out. And yeah, that's pretty much my advice. Do you have anything, Faris, you'd like to add to that? Or
I'd just say do not ever go in the student room. That's my biggest tip to everyone here. Just don't use the student room. It is very toxic. You're going to see people say, oh, I got 73 interviews and I have 45 offers from Madrid to Beijing. Like, it's all a bunch of lies and people just sometimes post stuff on there just to stress you out. So I'd say stick in your own lane, focus on yourself. All you need to worry about is am I doing everything I can to improve my chances? Don't worry about anyone else. If you're looking at other people, it should only be for inspiration, not for comparison. That's the best thing I'm going to tell you today. Just believe us. We've been through it. We got to the end. Like, and we're telling you, the student room. Even now, I feel it's toxic. Like as a near dentist. So yeah, that's just a really big piece of advice for you. Just stay in your own lane.
Yeah, wise words.
Awesome. Yeah. I'll go over this really quickly. I added this as a new slide this year because I know, summer is one of those things that people don't really know what do I do. So as I said, get work experience. The 98% rule, which is 98% are going to say no. So expect a lot of no's. And by no, I don't even mean them saying no. Sometimes they're just going to straight up ignore you. You might call a practice 5 times, they're just going to ignore you. You might go in and they might say, oh, we're not going to do anything. And then on the 7th time, they let you in. So I'm just trying to explain to you that work experience is a bit of a grind. It shouldn't be like that. It should be way easier because, a lot of dentists and doctors know that, students need it, but this is the reality. We just thought we'd let you know the realistic outcome of it because a lot of people, they hit the brick wall early and they think, oh, no one wants to take me. It's like, no, this is just the reality. It's just really difficult to get work experience. And best ways to do it, use LinkedIn, use Instagram, use email, go in person, do not stop. You've got ChatGPT now, get it to draft you like 100 emails and send it out to people. There's no excuse now, which is good. Like you have ChatGPT, so use it. And then build your skills. I always have this metric of how can you know if you're going to get an offer? Well, just go to the site, look at what the university is looking for and dissect it into simple terms, which means identify what are like the top 10 skills a dentist needs. So I'll tell you straight away some of the ones that myself and Robbie really resonate with. So communication, leadership, critical thinking, empathy, and manual dexterity. So that's 5 for you right there. If you do not have 2 or 3 examples, and by examples I mean situations, experiences, or roles that represent those individual skills, you need to find things to do. And that's what you should be doing in your summer. And you're going to ask me, hey, how do I do that? Well, in that time, you can do a million things. You can either, you could start like a podcast, you could do like a YouTube thing, you could start doing like content online that covers this kind of stuff that shows communication and leadership. When you go back to school, you can go and join the society and show that you're being active, join the school council. You can take on roles, you can try and be like house captain, you can try and be vice chair of your community, whatever it is. Do more charity work, volunteer. What else is there? You can start your own society. I always tell everyone, start a dental society at your school if you haven't got one. So there's just so many ways, like so many things you can do to build your skills. And if you don't know, if worse comes to worse, go on YouTube and search up, hey, how do I improve my leadership skills? Or go on Skillshare. Like I could genuinely do this for like 10 hours about how you can build your skills, but it's because so many young students don't do it. And then they get to the interview stage and they get asked a question about critical thinking. Hey, tell me an example where you showed it. They take something off their personal statement and then the interviewer says, hey, I want you to tell me a few other examples that aren't on your personal statement, and they just freeze. Me and Robbie have seen it time and time again. So just make sure you build your skills to the max. You should have too much to talk about, not too little. And then the last bit is, of course, try and have fun. Of course, it's a stressful time preparing, but try and relax, try and get that work-life balance. It's really important. Even right now as dental students and dentists in the future, we know how important it is to have balance. And lastly, get ready for the application process. Start writing that personal statement, book your UCAT, book your BMAT if you're going to do it from early. Do not delay it. You're going to tell yourself, I'm going to do it in September because I've got more time, and you're just going to, rush and cram it in the last 2 weeks anyway. So you might as well get out of the way so you're not stressing the whole summer. That's probably what I'd say with regards to that.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to move on to the next part of the presentation. Now we've got the application process done from start to finish. We're going to talk about our experience at dental school. There's a lot of text here. These are essentially the modules that we studied. So just as a quick oversight, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I do want to inform you. So at KCL in first year, we went over biomedical sciences as well as oral and craniofacial biology. So it's very, very similar to what the medics were kind of studying at the same time. You kind of start off on par, I'd say. And then in second year, you start to get more into teeth, into dentistry. As well as some general pathology and immunology. In third year and fourth year, your focus is more on some of the different specialities of dentistry, some of the main ones like prosthodontics, oral surgery, the materials you use in dentistry, orthodontics, pediatrics. And then in fifth year, the only extra module essentially is sedation and special care. Throughout all of the years, you go into things like management and leadership, which Faris mentioned was an important skill set to be able to talk about interviews. You also get taught about professionalism, which is very important within dentistry, and social and behavioral sciences. So it is quite interesting. It's not just purely teeth, etc. There's a lot of practical work as well. So you'll be seeing patients pretty much nursing from first, second year, and then starting to see your own patients third, fourth, and fifth year. But not all universities follow the same structure. This is just like, what we learned pretty much. So yeah, I'll pass on to Faris and he can tell you about his experience.
Yeah, should have changed this picture, but sorry. All right, so this is
think you just muted. Faris.
Yeah, someone muted me. I'm not sure. Yeah, so I was saying I should have changed this picture before, but yeah, we'll deal with it. So yeah, as a general rule, my experience at dental school has been pretty great. Like, I really enjoyed it. I didn't find the course as challenging as I expected. I think it's made to be this big bad course that you're going to be killing yourself for 5 years and you're going to be horrible and I'm going to cry. It's not that bad, guys. As long as you stay on top of your work, and by stay on top, Robbie knows me coming to and saying, "Hey, I've not done this lecture. What do I do?" You'll be okay. Just have a good support network, have good friends around you. And my best tip to every single person here, this is the top tip: get close with the older years. They've got notes that are way better than anything you're ever going to write. So there you go. That's your top tip of the day. Again, with the other things in the experience, it's allowed me to develop so many skills, meet a lot of amazing people. And this is something, a testament to KCL more than dental school as a whole, but it's just allowed me to meet so many interesting people in London. It gives you a great opportunity for you to get out there, maybe even think about different things. Maybe you're not going to do dentistry long term, maybe you're going to do something a bit more unique, which I'll get into in a moment. And then, some wins at dental school, just generally starting the podcast and the channel, which has been a fantastic journey. I've loved it with Robbie. We've had some amazing guests on. Networking with leaders in the field, so meeting really prominent dentists that are doing really interesting things. And by that, I don't even mean just dentistry, I mean technology, I mean business minds, people that are building practices, building brands that are worth millions and millions. It's a massive field, dentistry. It's really interesting. Starting a charity, so myself and Robbie, we seem to do things in pairs. So Robbie's got involved in his own charity. I've started my own charity. So that's something that we managed to get a love from during university, because you have a lot of fantastic experiences. And then the last big one for me was starting a company. So I have an AI-based company that I kind of mentioned at the start, which kind of helps with the whole admissions process, dentistry, medicine, a lot. And I'll have a little chat about that at the end of the talk as well, if you guys are interested in getting involved. And lastly, challenges. So it can still be difficult. Now, it's not necessarily the content I'd say is difficult, but the life in general. Like, it is a demanding course. There's some courses that will tell you be in there 2 days a week. You've got to be in dental school 4 or 5 days a week on average, and it is intense, especially when you start seeing patients. You have to learn to be not comparing yourself to others. It's really hard to do, especially with dentistry. I'm sure a lot of you have gone onto social media, you see this amazing work. You'll get really upset really easily, but the reality is those people have had 10, 20, 30 years to cultivate those skills. And lastly, understanding that you might be coming out of 10 A stars and a triple A star at A level. I'm the smartest in the room. You come to dental school, you are just the average. You've got to accept that and understand that you are not average or fantastic, but you got to accept the reality that it's a level playing field now, and failure will become a part of your journey. You're going to fail at some point in dental school. You just have to kind of accept it and just move on and grow through it. So all can be overcome with time management and a good support network. Just remember that.
Thank you for the wise words. My experience is essentially within dentistry, you're going to have to develop good communication skills. And the way the course is structured, especially at King's, you will develop good communication skills. You'll be taught how to communicate well. It's so important, with patients, with the team around you, with tutors, with people who are just teaching you in general. And it is quite you need to be quite talkative. You're going to have to talk with patients and your team from essentially 9 to 5, especially as you progress through the upper years. Networking is essential, I would say. It's not the be all and end all, but it is a nice way to meet new people, learn new things, and kind of help your career progress, essentially. And Faris and I have been privileged to be able to network with some great dentists through the podcast and through some dental conferences. Dentists love parties and conferences, so you'll be exposed to a lot of that within dental school. It is a hard degree, as I mentioned. It's quite long, money constraints as well with regards to student loan, but time management is key, and that will help you to get through the degree and pass and be prosperous, essentially. Some of my prouder moments essentially would be starting the podcast, as Faris said, progressing through the years and being about to graduate now, making friends for life and being involved in different societies as well. Faris and I have both been involved in the Arab Society, and I've also had the chance to be involved with the Dental Society, and Faris with the Reformation Society. So there's loads of societies that you can join and just develop your character, your personality, and learn a lot of skills, meet a lot of different people. Some of the challenges, it was very hard for me to settle in initially, but once I found my group and got comfortable, it was, plain sailing essentially. I also found it hard when we started, actually picking up a drill and drilling teeth in second year on fake patients. We called them phantom heads. It was hard for me to accept that people start off on different levels. I was seeing some of my peers doing really well, and I was struggling a bit more. But you realize it's a learning curve, and now everyone's pretty much at the same level. There's still some really amazing colleagues of mine that we will do much better work than I can, but I'm at a level where I'm comfortable. I know I can make patients happy, get them out of pain, and I'm proud of my dentistry. So that's practice makes perfect, essentially. And also failing for the first time. A lot of you will be, doing well academically, especially if you're applying to dentistry. So I think within dental school, you might have an area where you fail one exam. It might be small, it might be quite big, but experiencing failure for the first time can be rough. But, if you fail, then you just take any feedback on board, incorporate it into your kind of workflow, and then you will get better. Failing is such a blessing in disguise, in my opinion. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll do super quick, sorry. So someone asked in the chat what happens after dental school. So great question, firstly, well done. Basically, BDS, so that's your Bachelor in Dental Surgery. Everyone asked, how do I become a dental surgeon? Every dentist is a dental surgeon, essentially, in the UK. The year after is something called DFT, so foundation training. That's basically a year in practice. The way that you get into that practice is you do this fun exam called the situational judgment test, which you might have heard of in the UK earlier, which is an ethical exam. You get ranked across the entire country, basically from 1 to 1,000, and based on how well you do, you can go into your top scheme, which is basically the region where you want to be placed, and then you have 1 year in practice. Someone also asked what's the starting salary. So for this year, the starting salary is 36,288 after tax, after national insurance, after a lot of other things. That diminishes quite quickly, unfortunately, but it's a fantastic starting salary comparative to a lot of courses. And usually in terms of salary progression, in your second year, you can look to potentially, on average, 50,000 plus, and then past that is kind of up to you how much private work you do. Where if you look on Indeed.com, you can kind of start working out how much a private dentist makes quite easily. Within the 80,000 to 150,000 range. It's really, really variable based on how skilled you are. But let's say you don't want to do just general dentistry. You can also go into core training, which is where you have a bit of training in the hospital. You'll do a bit more practical work, a bit more surgery. You can become a specialist as well. So that basically means you go into dental specialties, which we put on one of the slides. There's 13 specialties, which basically means you're more of a high skill dentist, essentially, because you've dedicated extra years of your life to learn about root canals or orthodontics, which is basically braces or restorative work, your cosmetics and your veneers. So yeah, and then you can also go down alternative routes like PhDs, enrolling into the army, which is also really quite popular with some people. So yeah, there's so much scope with dentistry. And in terms of our own plans, we'll kind of discuss that when we talk about we've got our own little slides at the end for you guys that we'll talk about. But yeah, this is just really quick. Especially you guys can look at this anytime, and then the other routes. It's got it all there for you. Cool. I'll let Robbie go first.
All right, perfect. So what do we want to do? Again, it's not wise to decide before you go into practice and experience every last single aspect of dentistry first. But personally, I really like hospital-based dentistry. I really like implants and endodontics as well, which is like root canal treatments. That's personally what I like. That's what I want to do. And I might be looking to specialize in the future or move abroad. I mean, honestly, I haven't made my mind up. I could do anything. Who knows? But yeah, that's just me.
Yeah, me and Robbie had a chat yesterday where he was kind of breaking to me that he might go to Australia or New Zealand. Like, like if you don't like me, just say it with your chest. But yeah, in terms of myself, I'm kind of thinking a little bit differently in terms of I'm not 100% sure I'm going to commit to dentistry for long term, which is something to bear in mind for you guys. Like at the end of the day, this is a reality of life. You learn things as you go through it. I'm more interested, but if I do, I'd like to go down cosmetic dentistry, prosthodontics, which is kind of more restorative work to do with bridges, crowns, dentures, that kind of stuff. That's what I kind of enjoy. But I would like to also get into like healthcare consulting and just the business side of dentistry, which basically goes into different companies, dental technology companies, medical technology companies, give them insights into the field, give them insights into what it's like to be a dentist, and also do a little bit of Excel and market analysis. So that's kind of what I'm interested in, kind of the techie economic side of dentistry, which is a bit different. So yeah. And yeah, we'll just round off. This will be the last couple minutes. So someone also asked about like our grades, all that kind of stuff. You know, everyone loves to know. So in terms of my journey, I started off kind of not sure medicine or dentistry. The way I decided was I did my work experience. I looked at the life and I talked to dentists and doctors, and I asked them, what's your life like? And the general consensus was every single doctor hates the NHS, unfortunately, and every single dentist also doesn't like the NHS, but there's a way out. So you know, you have to kind of get your own experiences and work out what you like. Generally speaking, I say it's hard to know until you're in the course, unfortunately, which is a shame. That's why, you know, you just kind of have to do as much research as you can. But I think I picked right. My A-levels, I did biology, psychology, chemistry, and an EPQ. Again, people ask, do I need to do an EPQ? Absolutely not. However, as I said, if you go back to what I said earlier, any situation, experience that you can do that shows a skill is valuable, as long as it doesn't impact the core things, which are going to be your A-levels, your UCAT grade, and your interviews. Anything outside of that, yes, it is absolutely good because it just shows you've made an extra effort, but it's not a necessity. So I got A-star, A-star A, and an A-star in EPQ, 11 A-stars at GCSE, a 2750 UCAT with band 3 SJT, which, fun fact, is like I think it's one of the lowest bands. So, and I got all my interviews. So, you know, just because you get a low band SJT doesn't mean you won't get in. My personal statement, I did about 2 to 3 drafts, and I started it at the end of year 13. When you see Robbie's, you're gonna see why we're a bit different. My work experience, I was at a periodontist, then Poland, 2 weeks. I did an international scheme. Applied to Sheffield, Bristol, Queen Mary, King's, and Bath for pharmacology. Got all my interviews. I was very lucky. I got my offers quite early. So sorry to Sheffield if anyone's from Sheffield. I rejected them quite early on. But yeah, that was kind of my journey into dentistry.
Lovely, thank you. And my journey, again, wasn't sure about medicine or dentistry, but I did work experience in a practice in Wimbledon, and then a hospital in a max fax department. And then I was just like, I really like dentistry. So I decided on dentistry. A-levels, biochem and maths, kind of typical, you know, applicant. And I got 1 A-star and 2 A's. My GCSEs weren't as great as Faris's. I think it was like 5 A-stars, 4 A's, and a B, if I can remember correctly. UCAT, again, top 15%, band 1 SJT, thankfully. Personal statement, as Faris said, this is where we differ. I did about 30 to 40 drafts just to right at the end change it completely. I started at the end of year 12. I think the earlier you start, the better, but maybe not so many drafts. Maybe I was just really indecisive when I was at school. I applied to Liverpool, Bristol, Cardiff, King's, and St. George's for biomed. Liverpool rejected me with no interview, but I got interviews from these 3, Bristol, Cardiff, and King's. Then I got rejected from Bristol and Cardiff, and then finally I got King's, thankfully, and also St. George's for biomed, which was my 5th choice. So that was my journey.
Super quick, just want to go back to Robbie's slide, because a lot of people say, what grades do I need to get in? You never know if your application is good enough until you apply. Like Robbie got a better UCAT than me, similar A-levels, and some places rejected. Other people I know got better grades than me, better UCAT, and also got it is variable. So the main thing we say is just try your absolute hardest. If you get a low UCAT, that does not mean that you're going to get rejected straight away. Not true at all. So anyone that tells you, hey, you need to get a 700 UCAT or like a 6 or like 2005, whatever it is, not true. Just thought I'd throw that in really quickly, because yeah, when I got my band 3, I was really panicking. I thought I was going to get rejected from everywhere. Not the case.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for that. And I'll just run over this. So for those of you doing A-levels at the moment, these are some really good resources. Physics and maths tutor, really good past questions per topic. Practice those, and also past paper practice. Look at the specification for your subjects, look at exactly what they need, make notes on these, make sure you've read about it, and make sure you're confident answering questions about that. With maths and chemistry, I found that questions repeated quite often between different years, so again, even more reason to practice. As you go along, stay up to date with homework. You know, when you're in university, you're going to have to keep on top of things, so start that habit during A-levels, and I promise you won't go too far wrong. It is a major step up from GCSEs, those in year 11 right now that are about to make that jump. Please just be aware of that and be ready to hit the ground running. With essay subjects, Faris is probably better suited to speak about this because he did psychology, but just practice writing essays as much as you can. Get confident with the layout of the essays and being concise and getting straight to the point and knowing what keywords to include. And finally, just be organized. That is the important thing. As I said, start the habits from early on.
Yeah, and I think that's everything. I'm going to quickly whiz through this because I want you guys to ask questions. So main thing, Robbie, add if I miss anything, just work smarter, not harder. That doesn't mean that you don't work at all. Make the effort, be clever, use the resources we mentioned, do a bit of research on something called active recall and spaced repetition. That's my best tip. And also remember, it's a 40-year career. If you're not willing to put the grind in now in this next year and a half, when are you going to do it? So just make sure you put the effort in to really learn every little thing about dentistry before you go into it. So yeah. Cool. I think we've got a couple more little bits. Yeah, this is just us. This is basically closing statements. Now we're just going to give you guys a little info about us before we go into the questions. So, the Drill podcast is our podcast that we kind of do to help people that are getting into dental school, and also we've kind of shifted now to kind of interview just industry leaders specifically about their experiences, how to be a successful dentist or player in the dental field. We've got a bunch of amazing episodes for you guys to listen to, talking about everything we've said today. If you've forgotten about it, or you didn't hear it really well, or whatever, that you can listen to. So we'll put those up now. I think, Robbie, if you go to the next slide, they should have the.
I think it's on the last slide. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, we'll do that later. But yeah, basically, it's a great podcast for you guys. There you go, this one. So again, we'll send this to you. But yeah, it's a podcast that gives you guys fantastic insights into the world of dentistry. And then my channel, I think someone said they subscribed to it. Thanks very much. This basically, again, I have playlists for everything for dental school. Anything that you forget today, pop over to the channel. You can go watch it, and I promise you, you'll have answers to every question. If you don't, drop me a message. My answer is the same at Faris Dent, or drop us a message on the Drill podcast as well. And just some playlists. You can click this when we send you the slides. Perfect. And then someone also mentioned why am I thinking of leaving dentistry? What's kind of the trigger for it? And it's just interest. And one of the things that I'm kind of focusing on at the moment is kind of the business side of dentistry. So I've been very lucky to start an AI-based admissions help site. Basically gives you guys help and free basically feedback for your interviews. So what you'll do is you kind of submit a question, and it gives you feedback within 24 hours using our AI software. So that's something that I've kind of built this year alongside a friend of mine. And we'll go to the next slide. Yeah, perfect. So there's just a really, really quick video just to show you guys. I don't know if the audio will work. We'll see. If we just click play, and we'll see, Robbie. If not, don't worry, we can play it later. That's the audio work there. No? Okay, cool. Well, that's fine. I know what it says. Basically, what you do is you kind of go onto the site. You can click on this little box. You start recording yourself. You can generate a question, which should hopefully pop. Yeah. Can you guys see the video, by the way? Sorry if it's a bit delayed on my end. But basically, what I'm talking about here is how you can you record yourself. You pick a question from our massive bank. You do your answer. We save it onto our system, and then our AI software kind of does a review of it, and it gives you insight. So we'll talk about, we'll give you a few metrics. So one, it will tell you, how good your communication was, how good your content coverage was. We'll give you resources that will help you in the bits that you're weak at, and we also give you a score and a community average. So one of the hardest things in interviews is I don't know if I'm just bad at this or everyone's bad at it. So within our software, we built that in where you can see how the community does as a whole. Next slide. Yeah, there you go. So if you are interested, we'll leave this up just before we start the Q&A. You can scan this. It's just a little WhatsApp group that is for our for the software. If you guys join it, we'll give you a run through of how it works, and we can get that all sorted for you. I'll also put don't know where I can drop the. I'll send this message to you, Jake. If you could drop it in the chat for the attendees. This is the link to the website, so you guys can check it out. As I said, it's absolutely free. You can even give it a play around, just give it a go tomorrow or whenever you want to start your progress. We're building a personal statement reviewer as well. But yeah, that's just that's my current project. So yeah, that's kind of it. I'll leave this up just for a second, but we hope this was useful for you guys. Myself and Robbie, even though it's been quite a while, we know how scary it was back in year 12 to apply to dental school. We know how there's not a lot of information out there. We know how it can be a little bit daunting to get in. So please, please, please use this next half hour or however long we have, or how long you want to stay to ask as many questions as you'd like. We're very, very happy to help. Cool. Yeah, that's about it. I think we'll be right.
Yeah, perfect. So we'll leave this QR code up, and thank you guys for listening. And please do, feel free to use this time now to ask us any questions, put it in the chat, or we'll just be happy to answer as many questions as we can.
Great. Thanks so much, Faris and Robbie, firstly, for your presentation. I've seen lots of presentations on application advice, about people's reflections, etc. I do think this presentation you put together is probably the most comprehensive overview I've seen, because it literally covers everything around the application process in terms of the steps, your reflections on that process, your experience at medical and dental school, your top tips for year 12s in terms of taking their exams, etc. So it's extremely comprehensive, and it's always dusted with your own personal experience as well, which I think is really valuable, and this is why I wanted you guys here. So thanks so much for that. There's been lots of questions in the chat, as you can imagine. I'm curious as well, Faris, just briefly, while we've just talked about this AI platform, does it or will it look at things like sort of pace of speech at some point, or say like style as well? I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah, so the aim, so currently the way we do it is your content communication, non-verbal and verbal, and then as the AI gets a little bit smarter and we get more submissions, the idea is to look at your tone of voice, the way that you speak. So if you talk like this really quietly and you're monotone, and give you insights into that. So that's kind of how we're building the platform out. And also it's going to be kind of like the way we think about it is, when you guys start doing interviews specifically, you're going to realize that there's just too many questions out there, and a lot of the time you have to pay for a tutor, or you have to watch a video online, aka me, and that might not be the most like in-depth thing. You want something quickly that you can do lots and lots. So yeah, that's the whole idea. But in short, Jake, yeah, absolutely. The whole idea is to have it look at your non-verbal, look at your eye contact, look at the way that you speak. If you're speaking slowly, if you're speaking quickly, if you're speaking, yeah. So that's kind of the aim of the platform. The platform.
No, I think it's a brilliant idea, and I think something where you can get those initial reps in and just keep drilling it, because I think often with this you can keep getting advice from people, keep watching YouTube videos, but what really counts in the end is practice and actually trying answering questions and getting some feedback, whether that's from AI or then eventually a person. I think is very valuable. So I think it's a really great tool. So I hope it continues to develop well. But yeah, we got a whole chunk of questions, and they're all sort of, because we've covered so much ground. I'm just thinking of where's the best place to start. I'm kind of curious in terms of Faris to explore initially, because obviously I know you're exploring maybe other avenues outside of dentistry. Are there any other reasons why maybe you're considering dentistry not being for you anymore?
I think when it comes to dentistry, like just to start off, it is brilliant, and I still love dentistry. Like in case someone's like, oh, does he not like it? No, I actually still love dentistry. I like doing it. It's just for me, my ambitions and the things that I find I correlate most with are slightly outside the general field. So what that basically means in normal terms, because I do sometimes speak a bit flowery, is that as I've done more dentistry, I've realized that I love the clinical side, but I enjoy the business side more, and I enjoy problem solving a lot more. One of the things with dentistry that, it depends on the type of person you are, is at the end of the day, there's a set, all the problems are within a particular box. It's a big box. You've got endodontics, you've got root canals, you've got caries, okay? But it will all fall within something. You're never going to really pioneer something extremely new unless you go into research. With business, with economics, with the things I want to go into, which is like dental technology, you are the forefront. Like, for example, this company that I'm building is, no one's done this before, so I don't know what it's meant to look like. I don't know what to expect. It's just you work it out as you go along. So it just caters towards the way that I think and the things I'm interested in. But yeah, absolutely still love dentistry. And I might even explore this new thing and go back. And that's the beauty of life, is that dentistry is such a stable career that even if everything I do goes completely wrong, it doesn't work, it's not a problem. Dentistry is right there to go back to. It'll be a great career. It will give me a lot of flexibility as well. So yeah, that's kind of the logic behind the shift.
Great. And I think that's a really good point to highlight as well, that now you have the degree, it's something you can always, go back to. Does that then, I wasn't sure, I'm not entirely clear on this, but in medicine, is there, I don't know whether it applies to dentistry, is there some kind of like time limit in which you have to do that sort of foundation year before, I don't know exactly, like in terms of you have to retake some qualifying exams again or something like that?
That's a great question. I think in general, you can delay your foundation year. You don't have to do it right away. By how much you can delay it, I'm not 100% sure. However, it would require, like, the more you delay it, the harder it will be, because with dentistry you can de-skill so quickly. That's another thing for you guys. If you're doing clinical work, be on top of it. Don't skip sessions if you're bored or you want to go out. But yeah, no, you can delay it definitely, but most people would tend to do it in that first year. And just as very honest, just to everyone, it's mainly because of salary progression. That first year as an NHS dentist's foundation is the lowest you'll ever get paid in your life. It's not like with medicine where over the next 5-10 years your pay goes up by within up or down 10-15%. With dentistry it can double or triple once you enter the world of private and get into more complex treatments. That's why a lot of people do it early.
Great. Thanks, Faris. And Robbie, I'll come to you next because we're sort of starting with the future. In terms of, we mentioned a few times that you're thinking about leaving us and going to Australia. I was just wondering your reason behind that. Is there any comments? Maybe someone actually asked about the UDA system in the NHS versus private dentistry, which I know is quite a meaty question. And they've also asked as well about the ability to use your dentistry degree abroad. So yeah, any thoughts or reflections on your future next steps and why maybe leaving the UK to practice?
Yeah, so I think those are some great questions. I think it's not set in stone that I do want to move. I just believe that, working in other countries is a great experience. I think when looking at people, healthcare professionals, especially like medics and dentists that have gone to Australia or New Zealand and hearing stories about how much they enjoy life over there, it's been inspirational for me. And looking at it kind of ties in with that final question about using your degree abroad. So one of the reasons I thought about New Zealand is because it's quite easy to, work abroad with your degree. At the moment, I believe it's quite easy. You don't have to even sit a conversion exam. You can just go straight into registering with their professional dental body over there, get your name on the register, and obviously obtain the visa from the government, and then boom, you're clear to start working. Whereas with some other countries, especially the USA, you've got to do 2 years of conversion. You've got to pay about 75,000 each year. So it does vary depending on where you want to go in the world. So that's why I had my sights set on Australia and New Zealand, all of those good stories that I've heard. It's mainly the work-life balance. I believe here in the UK, it's not the best. It's good for dentists compared to other healthcare professionals, don't get me wrong. But I just think I'd like to experience something abroad, something overseas. I'm more of a laid-back kind of chill person. The hustle and bustle of London isn't something I envision myself doing, or being a part of for the entirety of my life. But we never know, things may change. And I think with regards to the UDA system, do you want me to answer that question?
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, any comments on that would be interesting.
Sure.
Yeah.
So within the NHS, there is a UDA system being used. It's constantly undergoing changes and stuff. So for certain treatments, you get UDAs. So there's 3 bands of treatments. Band 1 is typically stuff that's like non-invasive dentistry, pretty much carrying out X-rays, using study models or giving advice, carrying out an examination or a checkup. Band 2, I believe recently it's split into 2A and 2B, and I'm not quite sure what those branches are, but within Band 2, you've got your fillings, your root canal treatments, stuff like that, more invasive work. And then Band 3 is anything that will involve the lab making prosthesis for you. So what I mean by that is if you want to provide the patient with a crown or a denture or an inlay or an overlay, sometimes you might not be familiar with, or some of you might, these crowns and dentures have to be made by an external laboratory and then sent back to you for you to cement it onto the patient's tooth or for you to fit it inside the patient's mouth. And that would be a Band 3 treatment. For each band, you get a certain number of UDAs. I know for Band 3, I think it's 12 UDAs. I'm not sure about Band 2 and Band 1. Faris might know a bit later. So as an NHS dentist or as a foundation dentist, you have a certain number of UDAs you have to reach to complete your foundation training. And then if you choose to stay within the NHS, your practice that you work in, the practice owner will have signed a contract with the NHS to provide a certain number of UDAs. If they meet this number of UDAs, they will be given money by the NHS for fulfilling their contract. If not, then they get a partial, sum of that agreed amount. Within private dentistry, you don't have UDAs. You just do dentistry with no quotas. Patients come in, you treat them to their needs, and there's no pressure of meeting UDAs. So that would be my answer regarding that.
Cool. Thanks so much, Robbie. A student asked, they did ask this a couple of times. I'm going to reframe it slightly to maybe make it a bit of a meatier question, actually. They've asked about motivating yourself during exams. And I'm curious, you've both mentioned sort of dealing with failure at some point during your sort of dentistry degree journey. Is there a point where you did sort of say feel low in motivation? Maybe that was because of a poor result, or maybe it was actually leading prior to that. And how did you sort of deal with that moment of feeling sort of lowly motivated and sort of pick yourself back up again, I guess, for want of a better term? So happy to go to either of you, but I think Faris is eager to answer.
Yeah, I feel like this is a topic that is so important, especially when you come from a background where, like, you know, you're academically sound, you've done all the work that you can, you're really, you know, you're ready to go. Main thing I always say is it's the perspective. It's a perspective thing. If you think about it as I failed this exam, complete failure, it's all my fault, that's really dangerous. You need to think of it as this is just one step in the journey that's kind of gone afoot, that's not gone the right way, and it's absolutely fine. As Robbie said, he says this, and he doesn't say this in like he says it in a serious way, which is, you know, failure is good in the sense of you really do learn a lot when you fail. It's annoying, it stings a little bit, but not, you know, it's like when you go to the gym, you get a bit of soreness. Like, it doesn't mean it's bad. You're getting stronger, you're getting better. I think of that with failure as well. Yeah, practical tips, because I'm sure all you guys really can, hey, you know, what can we actually do? So main things, if you do have a situation where you fail or something goes wrong, first thing is to just not blame yourself. Don't worry about that. You know, you're going to have those internal thoughts anyway where you feel a bit bad. You don't need to beat down yourself anymore. Just start identifying what went wrong. You know, and sometimes it can be things that you didn't even know were important. Like, you know, you just had an off day, or you were not feeling that well that day, which, you know, sound like excuses, but they do happen. You might not have done the right preparation, which is usually the case. You know, that happens with me sometimes. And that's why I have Robbie to save the day when I need a lecture. I have some notes that I missed out on. So, you know, being better prepared. Maybe it's an indication that maybe your revision method isn't good. And it's good that you failed now and not in your finals, because you now know you need to adapt. So it's kind of doing a little self-audit and finding out what to improve. The next thing on the list is to identify, okay, what does this mean? So let's say you failed an exam. Is it the end of the world? A lot of the time it's not. It just means that, yes, it's going to be annoying. You're going to probably have to do a resit, or you're going to have to rejig a few things in your life, but it's not the end. You should have like a goal in mind that you want to achieve. If your goal is dentistry, and let's say you fail like one of your A levels, let's say, because, you know, a lot of people are really scared about that. That's their big thing. It happens. You now need to think, what other ways can you get in? So you can think about taking a gap year, applying as a postgraduate, applying to an enhanced degree the year after that has different grade boundaries. So it's just identifying that at the end of the day, failure happens. Just audit yourself, find the feedback, find how you can improve, and just remember your end goal is the main thing. As long as there are ways to get to that end goal, you're still absolutely fine. Do not worry, do not stress. Just make sure you make some kind of change as a result of the failure. And to stay motivated as well, you really need a good support network. And by support network, I mean, you know, it can be mum and dad, or if mum and dad, you know, they're a bit more strict, or they're not as, you know, supportive, which, you know, I totally understand. Just having good friends around you, colleagues, and that doesn't just mean dental or just friends at sixth forms, just people from different societies as well. Just get yourself well acquainted. Your support network is so important in dentistry, really important. Just thought so that should hopefully give you guys all the tips.
Great, no, thanks so much, Faris. And I think that really, I loved during your lecture the 98% rule, where when you're looking for work experience, most people are going to say no or not get back to you. And it is just that persistence, isn't it? You've got to keep, because you only need one to get back to you. And I love that. It's kind of a bit like the Pareto principle thing as well, the 80-20, you just got to like keep going with it. And it's nice you mentioned that as well, about having that support network, because with the paediatrician yesterday who was speaking as a consultant, they were talking about just dealing day to day with like difficult cases, the importance of having their support network around them in the form of their other colleagues, etc., to help talk through those cases. And this would be the case whether you're a dental student, medical student, or pre-applying as well. Robbie, I'm going to come to you for a question on, someone asked, what is the hardest part of dentistry? What have you found the most difficult thing during your degree. So I don't know whether that's in terms of the communications aspects, the professionalism, or the specific clinical skills. Is there something that comes to mind that's you found most challenging?
That's a very good question. I think in terms of, if I'm going to go through things, communication was not too bad at all. Content-wise, I think the content that you learn in dental school and the fact that you have to memorize it for exams is probably, in my opinion, the hardest thing. Not because it's hard to understand, but because of the sheer volume of how much you have to take in, be able to talk about in your essays, and the amount of detail. It's about the breadth and the depth. So I'd probably say the content. I think in terms of clinical skills, I also found that challenging, but like I said, again, it's a curve and eventually you get there in the end. So definitely the most challenging thing is just content, managing that, being able to answer questions and pass exams and memorize all that content that you need to know.
Was there any particular part of the content you found particularly challenging that comes to mind?
Anatomy. Yeah, and at the end of first year and throughout second year, just having to know like the nerves, the blood vessels, the bones of the face, the brain. We went into so much detail, the neck, everything, doing a live demonstration here. But yeah, I think anatomy for me was quite difficult because there's just so much, so much.
Interesting. And I think that's something I've heard from some of our first year dentists. They're sort of surprised when they join. There is so much like crossover, like with terms of like just learning about the human body in general and that anatomy in general. It isn't just specifically the teeth, it's everything. I'm interested as well to hear from you, Robbie, on we had this student ask this question yesterday, so I want to make sure we get to them, and they've asked about dentists working in A&E. So would you be able to comment on the role of a dentist in a hospital setting and in emergent care, or anything you know about that?
Yeah, that's really cool. So typically in your first year after graduating, you won't be working in emergency care, but in your second year, you can, which is known as dental core training, if you choose to stay within the NHS, you can get rotations. And rotations, basically you do a few months in one specialty of dentistry and another few months in another specialty of dentistry. And a lot of people tend to go down the oral surgery / oral and maxillofacial surgery route, whereby you could be on call in A&E as part of your oral and maxillofacial surgery rotation. And you could have a patient who's been involved in a road traffic collision, an RTC, and they've come in fractured facial bones, some sort of trauma. They'll obviously be stabilized by doctors first, but then after the primary assessment and the stabilization has been carried out, you'd be called in to carry out a secondary assessment, think about splinting some bones, any dislocations, any fractures, taking x-rays, otherwise known as radiographs, things like that. So you can have dentists that work in A&E. And also with regards to emergency care, dentists now have acute dental care departments in hospitals, or a lot of patients are starting to call 111 up and they're being booked in with their local dentist for emergency appointments. And again, in those kind of settings, you'd be carrying out examinations, x-rays, and prescribing drugs, as well as potentially taking out teeth or carrying out root canal treatments to get patients out of pain. So there's two sides. You can be working with doctors in an A&E department. You also have acute dental care departments in hospitals and emergency treatments and emergency patients within practice. So, yeah.
Great. Thanks so much, Robbie, for telling us more about that. Faris, I'm going to come to you. I know we mentioned in the chat that we'd cover this question on Islamic finance that the student asked about and interest-free debt. I've put some links for that student because we've had this question before via email. But do you have any thoughts on that you want to share?
Yeah. So just as a general rule, interest-free finance is really challenging, especially now we're in a recession. So interest rates have hiked up. So you're going to be paying ridiculous rates on a student loan. When it comes to Islamic financing, your best bet, if this is something you're really intense on, is to go to an Islamic bank. Generally speaking, though, you have to be aware it's going to be difficult to do, it's going to be very expensive, and interest gets substituted for a fee instead. the best way to do something like this, if there's something that's really, really bothering you and you need more insight, is to, consult your, like a scholar or someone in your local community that has insights into something like this. In the same way that you go to your lecturer to learn about anatomy and get told where the thorax is, you want to go to someone that really understands what they're talking about. But as a general rule, I'm a Muslim myself. What I personally follow is this is being used for a purpose, which is my education. There's no other way I can physically afford it. So that's why for me I take a student loan. So whether or not that's right or wrong Islamically is based on your own beliefs and your own belief system, but you need to do your due diligence, and it is tough, and I want to be really clear, it's extremely difficult, and a lot of Muslims, especially a lot of friends of mine, do opt, as well as myself, to take a student loan. Whether or not you want to do that is up to you. But yeah, it's expensive, unfortunately, and most people can't afford including myself, can't afford the 9,250 a year, which might be hiking up as well. Who knows? So hopefully that helps. I know it's a bit of a sideways answer, but I just want to give you my insights, which is through my own research. I know it is a challenging thing, but for the purposes of education, it is generally accepted in most schools of thought. So yeah, hopefully that helps you.
Great. Thank you so much for those comments, Faris, on that. Really appreciated. I'm just trying to think what other questions. So we've only got a few moments left, and I want to make sure that we're covering all the main questions that have popped up during the lecture. I want to just reflect maybe one question, thinking about this is it. This is a question I wanted to cover. So this speaks to the different healthcare careers our students might be pursuing. I know you mentioned in your slide at the end about thinking about medicine and other healthcare careers, but I think this question speaks to that. So I'll come to both of you actually. So I'll come to yourself, Robbie, first. And the question is, what is special about dentistry which is not in other healthcare careers?
Well, that's a really, really good question, and one that I love to answer. So typically within dentistry, when the patient walks in, you're consulting the patient to find out what the issue is. Then you're carrying out an examination on them. Then you're doing special investigations on them in the form of taking x-rays. Then you're diagnosing them. Then you're giving them the treatment options and gaining consent. Then you're carrying out the treatment yourself, and then you're going to review them afterwards. So you've done all of those things for that patient. That patient is yours from start to end. Of course, in some cases, you're going to need to refer them to specialists if their case is extremely complex, which goes without saying. Within other healthcare professionals, it might be that a patient goes to a GP for a consultation. The GP then has to refer to a specialty. The specialty will do the examination, and then they will need an x-ray. So they'll refer to radiography. Then radiography will send the patient back to the specialist. And now the specialist will come up with the treatment plan, carrying out the treatment, and then send them back to the GP for regular review. So you'll go with, that's just an example in medicine. I know it's maybe a bit too much of a generalization, but typically, my experience in the NHS has been like that. The person who saw me at the beginning doesn't have the satisfaction of going through each step of the journey with me, and having the satisfaction of carrying out my treatment and seeing how much they've impacted me and helped me out. So I think that's really special about dentistry. You do every single part of the treatment in most cases, unless they need referral, pretty much.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Right.
Yeah,
Faris, over to you.
I was going to say, yeah, I completely agree, Robbie. Like it's not something that you necessarily find a specific difference by just looking online. You just kind of have to go and see it in person, and you'll find something that gives you like a love of dentistry and wanting to look at teeth.
Great. Thank you. Thanks both for answering that question. I think it's a really good one as well. So thank you to the person who put that in the chat. So I think two final questions. This question comes up almost every single week for our speakers, and I definitely have to ask it. And I think particularly for dentistry, it's interesting because there's less sort of obvious examples out there. But some students have asked any sort of recommended books you'd recommend reading, but I'd also extend that to any sort of particular articles or any, say, maybe Substacks or anything you guys would recommend reading. Besides the content you produce yourselves, is there anything you'd recommend? Faris, I'll come to you. Or Robbie? Faris?
Have you got any, Robbie, that you can think of?
I was just going to say, for more of an insight into dentistry, I guess maybe subscribe to the BDJ. It might be a bit advanced, but there sometimes are some good articles about the profession, about different cool things, different advances in the profession, which maybe you could even use to talk about in your interviews. I think that's pretty cool. Apart from that reading stuff, yeah, there's nothing else I can think of. Maybe Faris.
I'll be very honest with you guys. Like the reading bit, there's not. You can do a lot of reading. You can read books, definitely. I'll give you really easy ones that you can start looking at. You can look at an author called Atul Gawande. He's more medical, but he'll give you interesting insights into medical ethics, which kind of reflect on dental ethics. But generally speaking, if you want to read about dentistry, you know, I just Google up dental news. Like I generally think just go to dentistry.co.uk, which is a really famous website. Just look at news, look at the interesting things. I wouldn't really fret too much about it in interviews. What you need to be aware of usually is research. So just have one or two bits of research that you know about and you're quite confident to talk about. But the reason why you might not hear me say, hey, read this book is because I personally have this belief that you should see dentistry firsthand if you can. And again, as we mentioned, those MOOCs, MOOC, massive online open courses, 90% of them are free. Do those to get some insights as well. So hopefully that gives you a bit of insight for the person that asks about books.
Great. Thanks, Faris. So guys, final question, just before we round off. And I've asked quite a few of our speakers this, but I think it'd be nice to hear your thoughts as well. I can come to either one of you first. I'll come to you first, Robbie. If everything goes in your head according to kind of what you have planned so far, where do you see yourself in 5 years in terms of your work, etc.? What would be like an ideal sort of Robbie in 5 years' time?
Great question. Perhaps being in a specialist kind of pathway, being maybe about to specialize in a further field of dentistry. Yeah, I guess paying back my student loan as well, having a good income as well, being able to support people like my family that need it, things like that. I think that's probably where I see myself in 5 years. It's hard to look that far ahead, but yeah.
Yeah, it is. I mean, so much can change in that time. But no, thank you, Robbie. I'll put you on the spot there. And Faris, yourself?
Is this question, what do I want to do over the next 5 years?
Or yeah, or how do you, what would be, imagine all your plans go ahead and they will go smoothly. Yeah, what would you like to see from yourself in 5 years?
I think main thing is just that I'm growing in some way, which it's kind of vague, but it just means that I'm not just being stagnant. I'm not just doing one thing, just doing different projects and still excited about that. I think the other thing is, just personal goals of mine is to build this company that I've got up or other companies up and sell them. That's just something I'm interested in, as a person that likes startups. I work at a startup at the moment in dental technology. So maybe continuing that job there and just, building up my skill set. Atop that, probably, like personal goals, hopefully getting married this summer. So, making sure I have a good marriage and a successful one, start a family. Some personal thing. I guess now that I'm talking about it, you guys are quite young that are here, that you might not be thinking about it, but we're getting a little bit older, myself and Robbie, so that stuff is important. And lastly, just 5 years plus is my personal aim is to just do as much as I can, generate, build wealth as a young man, and then I want to spend the rest of my life just kind of doing charity, building up my my current charity that I work with now, and just doing more work back home. Myself and Robbie, our original country is Egypt, so we'd love to, I'm sure Robbie agrees, but love to go back and get more charity work out there. So yeah, those are kind of my overarching aims over the next 5-10 years, I'd say.
Great, thanks, Faris. And Faris, what is the charity you are involved in at the moment?
So the charity I'm involved with is called Reformation Charity. So what the charity does is it enables university students to start charitable work, which means, work with their own hands. While they're at university, we do volunteering for homeless. So we do a yearly drive for the homeless in London, where we've raised over the last 5 years in excess of £200,000-300,000. And we do a Ramadan drive, which is to help people during the month of Ramadan. And that's for people from all faiths, backgrounds, beliefs. And we just in general do a lot of volunteering with refugee children as well. And also with regards to Robbie, he has his own charity that he works with, Mobile Smiles, which is a fantastic charity, which I'll let Robbie kind of do an intro to, because I know he'll do it better than me.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, over to you, Robbie.
Thank you, Faris and Jake. Yeah, Mobile Smiles is the name of the charity. You can find us on Instagram or at mobilesmilescharity.com. And essentially, we bought we bought a van in Egypt, and we converted the back of it into a dental kind of surgery. And we also bought another couple of vans which we converted into like a general consultation room for general medicine as well, and another one for ophthalmology, which is eyes. And yeah, it basically just drives around and does simple treatment like extraction, so filling out teeth, or temporary fillings for those people who are in pain and can't afford it, or afford dental treatment because they live in perhaps a deprived area within Egypt. And we are looking to branch out to other countries. I think Namibia is our next country that we're hoping to branch out to. We've got a few charity events coming up and stuff like that to help raise funds, and thankfully we've raised quite a lot already. Yeah, tens of thousands of pounds, which is, you know, pretty decent, pretty solid. So yeah, hopefully we can continue to grow that.
That's so cool. Yeah, brilliant work, guys. That's unbelievable. Robbie, I'll just come to you actually. Sorry, one more time, just because it does relate to a question. I can see Faris is typing as well. Someone has asked about seeing dentists doing work abroad in countries which might have limited access to dental treatment. Do you have any advice or guidance on how, I guess maybe for a pre-entry student, it's even more challenging, but maybe as a dental student as well, you can go about getting that experience going abroad? And I guess during your dental years, is that something you've done like during the summer, like gone out and done that work with your charity?
Great question. Yeah, I think getting work experience abroad isn't as great as it sounds. A lot of times admissions, you know, they might not find it that useful that you've done work abroad, you know, as dental work experience, just because different dental systems work differently. But I can see the appeal of having to go and do some voluntary work abroad. That would be more eye-catching for admissions. As a dental student, I know with Mobile Smiles, you'd be quite limited in what you can do with regards to working with the dental charity. It would be, you know, perhaps helping with the provision of PPE, so masks, aprons, eye protection, stuff like that. Maybe more administrative role of things, organizing queues for us, stuff like that. Once you're in dental school, you can get a tiny bit more hands-on. You can help with nursing, cleaning, things like that. And only once you're qualified can you actually start doing dental stuff. But I've had a lot of people ask me about work experience abroad, and it's not a necessity. Obviously, great if you can do it, but just remember, in your personal statement, you can't talk about work experience for too long, so don't overdo it. Just get what you need. Make it very simple. Read the entry requirements for each university and go based off that. Some require volunteering, some require dental work experience. None, as far as I'm aware, require anything abroad. So that's that.
Great. Thanks so much, Robbie, for that. And I think that we can come to a close on those questions, because I realise we've just gone over time. And I think one comment as well on the work experience, just from me, because I know it more from an admissionsy angle as well, it really is when you do work experience. And I think I'm really glad, you know, Faris and Robbie have both, you know, emphasised it is something that if you can get it, it is really important, because fundamentally it's about answering that question, you know, why dentistry? And getting that work experience allows you to really flesh out that answer, because you've been there, you've seen it, and you've done it. And if you can go abroad and get some extra work experience there to get more of an understanding, great. But you've got to be asking yourself that question all the time. How is it helping me answer that question, why dentistry, and improving my knowledge of the field in general? But thank you, Faris and Robbie, for your time this evening. It's been so great hearing from you. I think we've covered almost everything a pre-entry dental student might be interested in hearing about. And I just want to make a final comment as well on our attendees today. So it has been a bit of a smaller session in terms of the lecture series, but I think that's generally speaking because, you know, there are less students who put dentistry as their key focus as opposed to medicine. And also this is one of our bonus lectures, so it's not sort of compulsory to attend. However, for those of you watching live and you've stuck to the end watching the Q&A, and I just can see the numbers stayed pretty consistent throughout, when you're applying, that sort of motivation, that sort of, you know, that hunger to have gone out there, that persistence to learn more all the time, and that interest, that really does come across in interview. You know, that just pure motivation and desire to want to do it. And I really think those of you who are here now, you know, who are taking that time out of your Wednesday evening to hear more about dentistry, you know, that really does show that. So keep doing that, keep pursuing more opportunities, and it will really go a long way in terms of making a great application at dental school. So guys, we'll sign off there. I'm going to post the evaluation form in the chat. So please complete that. Let us know how you found the lecture. And one of you will get a £15 Waterstones voucher for that as well. So make sure you complete that. It'd be great to hear your comments. So without further ado, I will close the lecture for this evening. Thanks again to Faris and Robbie for your time. It's brilliant hearing from you. And everyone else, I will see you on Tuesday for an overview of the UCAT with me at 6 p.m. So see you then, guys. Bye.